NCDA Average Joe's podcast. I'm Wes Peters, alumni of way too many schools. No, Central Michigan, RIP, Michigan State, and current head coach of UC. I'm joined by Dylan Greer, former captain, active player for Ohio State. Shadid Drakeford, founder and alumni of VCU. Rebecca Chappelle. Crap, I always forget how to pronounce it. I'm sorry, Becca. MSU alumni and current coach of MSU, and Colby Bryceland, alumni and current coach of Akron. All of us are NCDA board members, so welcome, guys. Thanks for joining us tonight. Really quick plug. Last time, I think it was about 3 months ago, we did our last pod. I asked for people to submit new names for the podcast. We are still open to taking those. So I think Dylan came up with was it Becca? One of us came up with a really cool idea while we were sitting here talking. Do you guys remember what it was?
Strictly hot takes.
Strictly hot takes. There it
Yeah, it was
is.
Becca's idea.
Yeah,
I'm
that
not
might be
taking
it
credit
going
for that.
forward. But anyway, still name pending. We're still looking at it going forward. With that said, speaking of Becca, she's got some stuff about, or she's prepared some information to talk about all the recent injuries that we've seen in the last few tournaments and what we plan to offer to do about that.
Yeah, thanks, Wes. So with what we've seen in return to play for this 2021-2022 season, for anybody that's been following with the league, there has been an exponential increase in injuries, anywhere from really basic chipped fingers all the way to spiral fractures of the arm. NCDA really does not want to see any further injuries of this nature, especially wanting to put our players' health first. So I've been taking lead with a small team of people experienced or professionally in physical therapy, athletic training, and other sorts of that nature. Most of them are alumni of NCDA or play currently in USA Dodgeball. They're all volunteering their time to help and put together a guide for stretching, preventive care, and rehab care if you are experiencing any pain or injuries. Don't have a current timeline to release here yet, but we're looking to have that out shortly, hopefully in the next couple weeks here. That will be for all players, teams, alumni to utilize, and just really with the goal of having everybody's health first and foremost in the league.
Awesome. Thanks, Becca. Yeah, be on the lookout for that, everybody. It's, we care deeply about everyone's, health and safety in the league, and we do not want to continue to see injuries. So please utilize this information once we get it out. I beg you guys. With that said, one more plug. Going forward, we'd like to require every team to take the rulebook quiz. We've had decent engagement with it so far. Colby has made an announcement for Akron's tournament. He is the director of officiating for the league for Akron's tournament, the War. If your team is attending and your team does not have at least 3 refs worth that have filled out and that have taken the quiz and completed it successfully with a passing grade, your team will not be scheduled to play for this tournament. So please make sure you guys do it. And going forward with nationals, I think we're going to apply the same exact rule for that. Your team will be required to have a sufficient number of refs, including shot clockers, who have completed the quiz with a passing grade, or you will not be allowed to play at nationals.
All captains have to complete it.
Yep, all captains.
For Akron's, you have until this coming Saturday, which is the 19th, because that gives us a week to get the schedule out. So if you're a captain, coach, whoever officiates for your school, normally you have to have it completed by the 19th.
Cool. And for nationals, same will go a week before nationals. Saturday matches are due to start. And any other tournaments that may happen between now and nationals after the War, such as the Beast. Going into next season, we do plan to change the format. Everyone will be required to complete some form of the rulebook quiz to simply play, in addition with registering with the league. That'll be a part of that. And there will be a more difficult quiz, such as the one now, that referees and captains will be required to take. So with that, let's get into what we want to actually talk about tonight, guys. We're going to recap a few tournaments and then preview at the aforementioned War. So let's start with the ODC, the Ohio Dodgeball Cup. Really, probably the best quality of dodgeball, top to bottom, in my opinion, tournament-wise so far this semester. Like just match by match. How did you guys feel, Colby and Dylan, since you guys were there?
I thought it was pretty crazy how every match was really even all the way down to the wire. And all of those games, either team could have taken the win. So it was really kind of awesome to see how even the Ohio region is when we're considered such a good region this year overall. So to see that all teams are kind of like on a pretty even skill level is kind of awesome. Not to take anything away from UC winning, of course, which I know you just want to talk about that the rest of the podcast.
Well, obviously.
Yeah.
Colby?
Yeah, I echo what Dylan said. It's cool to see like top to bottom how close all the teams are this year compared to previous seasons, especially the Ohio Dodgeball Cup. I know we didn't have a couple teams in attendance, but the teams that did show up, very, very close in skill, and all the matches came down to, like Dylan said, came down to the wire, and they're all very interesting to watch. Hope all you guys got to catch some of the streams that we had that day. It was some pretty exciting dodgeball stuff. And also congratulations to you, Wes, and your Bearcats for taking the Ohio Dodgeball Cup this year.
Thanks, guys. I really do appreciate that. Before I gloat about my own team, I do want to point out that the competition was so good that every single team got at least one win on the day. So I do think that really does illustrate the point that the region is very close, and it wasn't just the same teams beating up on the same teams and getting victories. There were a lot of surprising results for the tournament. Like
Who are you
Ohio,
most impressed with? Are you most impressed with Ohio, or are you most impressed with BG? Because honestly, they kind of outdid my expectations for them this tournament. They really showed that they're contending teams.
I didn't really get to see Akron, other than when we played Akron, I didn't get to see Akron play at all, and then I didn't get to see Ohio play at all day. So for me, it's a no-brainer. It was BG. They scheduled themselves to play 4 matches, beat OSU, which was just a monumental shock to me. I thought there was no way they would beat you guys, and it was a really good back and forth match the whole way, but they blew my expectations out of the water for sure. But yeah, obviously UC took home the cup, but it was our match against OSU was about as down to the wire as you can ask. We were up 2-0 at half, and then OSU took a really long point to bring it back. It was probably 11-12 minutes. Granted, 3 minutes rolled over, so it was 28-minute half. It was probably 12-minute point to make it 2-1, and then we ended up winning 2-1 and killing out like the next 15-16 minutes or whatever it was. And it was so down to the wire that we had 2 players left in against OSU. I think you guys had like 6. And one of our sophomore but rookies, Ethan Schlesinger, he got blasted on the chest, and the ball went probably 15-20 feet up in the air, like straight up. And he was laying down on his back, and it comes straight down, and he catches it to clutch it with like 30 seconds left in the game to bring a player in it and basically seal it. It was just nuts how close that game was.
If he didn't make that catch, I was ready to call a timeout, because then it would have been us versus Jacob Weber. He would have been the last one left. And hoping we would have got that point. So really, that catch did make a difference for your team.
Oh, it was monumental. If he didn't make that catch, I was already gearing up to go to overtime with you guys. But one thing that shocked me in that moment is that nobody threw another ball to like try and hit him before that ball came down. It was like time just stopped and stood still for like, however long that really was, but it felt like an eternity.
Yeah.
So I actually have the notes here. I officiated that game, and the first point was almost so we had 2 minutes 44 seconds go all over to halftime. And so the actual point took almost 17 minutes, the first one.
Okay.
And then, and so it was an incredible point to have OSU come back, within, winning distance of that match. And then, like you said, coming down to the wire, it was man-to-man. You guys would get a catch, and then OSU would get a hit, and then, OSU would get a catch, and UC would get a hit. It really just came down to who made the least amount of mistakes and who could manage the clock. And UC just managed to rock out, or else I was confident that match was going into overtime. Kind of wish it did, just for purposes of the league and matches. But it was fun to not only watch but officiate, because it was two high caliber Ohio teams, which in the past we haven't really seen that much competition within the Ohio region. So those two high caliber teams duking it out for the cup was just awesome. And UC took it, but it could have been down to any one or two players switch, that it could have easily gone the other way.
No, I totally agree. Like that was my blood pressure or my heart rate had to be like over 100 for like the entire second half. I was just like on pins and needles, like just emotionally, but that whole half. But honestly, like when we were celebrating with the trophy and everything, like one of my kids who was there, like one of the day ones, came over to me and he put his arm around me. He's like, "Hey, 4-year plan, coach." Because I had this, it was either a 3 or 4 year plan I had together. It was basically years 1 and 2 was like recruit and like develop talent, and then years 3 and 4 were basically win ODC and then win nationals. So to hear that call back just like meant a lot. It was like just to be personal and gloat for a second. It just feels really good to finally accomplish that and like get that big trophy under our belt for our program. It's going to mean so much to us going forward. In fact, tomorrow we have like a spring recruiting fair, and to be able to, honestly, just like for a visual, to be able to take that trophy to the recruiting fair, hopefully it'll get some people to stop over and get more people interested in the club, and we can keep recruiting for the year. So
Yeah, I'm happy
cheap
for you,
plug for
man.
continuing to recruit year round, by the way.
I think what you did kind of proves the importance of a coach. You came in and started the program, and you kind of built it from the ground up yourself and recruited all those players, and then kind of made it self-sufficient as well, which is really awesome. So it really proves the effect that alumni have on this league, starting up new teams and trying to help us grow, because really that coaching presence is really important for all these teams, and those that have coaches are a lot better than those that don't. But we've been down this road before. Just another
Yeah.
plug to alumni watching this, please help us
Yeah,
start teams,
please
help us
get
grow the league.
involved. And I couldn't agree with that statement more. And we'll get to MSU in a little bit, but the same goes for Rebecca's team. We were talking before we started the pod. That whole team is basically like made up of people who were freshmen when COVID hit and current freshmen now, and they just won MDC as well, which we'll get to in a moment. But it really just does go to show how much the effect that alumni involvement does have to developing talent and quickly growing and rebuilding teams.
Yeah.
So
Let's circle back to ODC real quick. One last comment I have about the tournament was the match between, I believe it was OU and BG. Colby, I believe you officiated that match. You said it was really close. Somebody said that match was the match of the day, with how it came to the wire, and then the two teams went to OT. So unfortunately, I didn't get to see it. I was on the other court. I'm not sure if either of you did, and have some comments about it.
I didn't. I think that was the same time I was reffing a different match, or Akron was playing. I'm not really sure. But yeah, so that was one of the main surprises, is how well OU did all day.
mhm.
They took Akron to overtime and beat him in overtime, which was kind of a heartbreaker. But then they took BG into overtime. They came, I believe they came back and tied it up to go to OT, and then just BG wore them down in overtime. But from the first semester to now, OU has had a tremendous leap, and it's no small part to the veteran players. You have Alex Janauskas from GVSU, and you have Caleb Arnold back, which is huge. Those two veteran presence are almost like player coaches. And so, the years they have under their belt, we're able to, take Ohio to the next level this semester from where they were previously. And it's really, really cool to see the impact that just two guys can have on a roster.
Yeah. It seems like that team was kind of hustling the whole league. They showed up to their home tournament in their throwback white jerseys with green marker written on them that say OU, and then to go to ODC with full jerseys, everybody has one, and then just the performance they had, it was kind of outstanding to see the difference.
Yeah, no, I think Ohio's really, like Akron has a ton of kids that they've recruited this year. I think the Ohio region is in such a great place to put a bow on this. Like BG has a massive recruiting class. Ohio has a massive recruiting class. That you mentioned their home tournament. They, turned heads at that tournament. We thought they were going to be in the dumps, like tough season, rebuilding. They came out and competed in every match they played, and the same was no different in this tournament. And OSU and UC obviously right now top of the region. We've had good recruiting classes before we went into COVID, and still have good recruiting classes this year. Just those 5 teams are in such a good spot right now, and hopefully the rest of the region catches up as well. Let's shift topics to the Happy Valley tournament that happened the day after the ODC. Shadid, you were there for that one, commentating, live streaming. What are your big takeaways?
Yeah, it was interesting. For starters, I found out that Towson only had 13 players. And when you're the best team on the East Coast and you know that everybody's gunning for you, you have to understand that everyone's going to give you your best shot every single time. So when I saw that they only had 13 players, I was like, ooh. I remember when I was playing at VCU many moons ago, and we only have 12 or 10 or 11, and you can't afford one injury. Even one injury is like detrimental to your overall success. And unfortunately, throughout the day, Towson had 3 injuries, and it really kind of changed things a little bit. JMU actually came into the tournament healthy for once. I actually had an opportunity to speak to one of their assistant captains, Jack Marsh, and he was like, yeah, actually, this is the first time we actually come into the tournament healthy. Like, everybody's at full strength. And for those of you who wasn't following JMU beforehand, JMU last tournament was at Ohio University at the JBBB tournament. They went 0-3. Lost to Ohio State, lost to Cincy, lost to Grand Valley. A lot of people, it's like, yo, like, JMU not doing well. They went 3-0. And 6-1 victory to Penn State. 6-1 victory to Penn State. 5-1 victory to Maryland. And 5-0 to Towson. I will say, though, that the match of the day, which I thought was going to be Towson versus JMU, it was actually Towson versus Penn State. That was actually the match of the day. At one point in the first half, it was like 2-2. And I believe it was like in the first half. And I remember there was only like, I want to say about 4 players left. And I was on the commentating, and I was like, Towson really needs to win this point, because if they don't win this point, they're going to lose. Sure enough, they wasn't able to win that point, and they ended up losing 4-2. And I was like, oh, they're playing against JMU, who's 2-0. They're 1-1. I saw, several injuries. Emotionally, they was like no longer invested. And then that's how you get this 5-0 beatdown, as some people call it.
From JMU.
For JMU. Because emotions definitely play like a huge role for that tournament, as well as injuries. So
I think those East Coast teams play with a lot of emotion. Like, if they're running hot, they're running high on emotion. If they're getting down, they at least in my experience with some of the teams, they tend to fold.
I definitely think that's something the whole league does, but it seems a lot more present in the East Coast for sure.
Yeah,
I don't know if you can say the whole league, and we'll get to that again in a moment. But
it's definitely a thing on the East Coast, because people do get very emotional, and they will tell you exactly how they feel. And some of the stuff actually needs to be bleeped out, but they're very passionate. Let's just go with that.
So Shadid, I gotta know, what do you make of the Towson roster? Even despite the injuries, or had they not had injuries, what was the talent level of the 13-person roster that they brought?
Oh, it was solid. It was solid. Like, I was talking to some of them after the tournament, and they told me straight up, it's like, listen, like, we understand that we lost, but we still have a job we have to do. And we pride ourselves in being able to fulfill that responsibility. So we understand that we lost some of my guys. Some people didn't show up, but we still have to play our style of dodgeball. So I really like that because they didn't make any excuses. They took the losses, you know. They didn't say like, well, we should have had X, Y, we should have had this play. Like, nah, it was none of that. It was like, hey, like, yeah, they beat us. They beat us. And, you know, we're not healthy. We know this. We will regroup and we'll see everybody in 2 weeks. I was like, okay, I respect that. So that was their overall takeaway.
So then, how much water or stock do you put into JMU beating? I know they played them with 10 players, and they won 5-0, but how much stock do you put into the overall performance of the tournament that JMU had? Because to go back to what you said earlier, JMU went 0-3 at the JBBB, and to come out now and really throttle all three teams that they played was quite the script flip there. So how much stock do you put into JMU going forward?
Yeah, I actually, not trying to be an East Coast bias or anything like that. I there's some stock there because you got to remember the first time these two teams played, Penn State and JMU, it was at Towson, and then they got the upset win against JMU. That's kind of like started this whole snowball effect of, oh my God, like what's happening with JMU? Then Towson beat JMU, and then now you're on a 5-game losing streak. And now there's like, oh my God. So, JMU knew that they had to get some work done. I remember, I want to say like either like in an article or whatnot, I don't remember, in a video that I was saying like the game between Penn State and JMU, the team who makes the least mistakes are going to win because both teams like to play fast and both teams like to play very aggressive. That's just how both of them are. Well, Penn State made way more mistakes early on. And JMU didn't have to do a whole bunch of strategy. There was like boom, 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 boom. And then that's all she wrote. Like it was 3-0 at halftime. And it could have been 3-1. But one of the Penn State players threw a single throw to the last JMU player. He was able to catch it in under 10 seconds. And that just destroyed any momentum that Penn State had. Right. So, yeah, they just crushed their opponents early. And they never had an opportunity to get back into the games. So, yeah, there's some stock there.
So what is it with, I got to bring this up because it's a constant debate and topic. What is it with these East Coast teams and having these gyms that are just like the wall's a foot behind the end line? Like, it looked like the Thunderdome out there that they were playing in, right? It was just walls careening off the wall, like boom, 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 just over and over, just how close the wall is and how much wall ball is still played, despite, the turn of a rule that we put in that you don't have a shot clock if you only have 2 or fewer balls.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I didn't build none of these schools, and we didn't build none of these schools, so I don't know the drawings or the architect of any of this stuff, but yeah, wall ball definitely plays a factor. Especially if you're offensively minded, that teams don't like catching when there's like 65+ mile balls per hour coming at your face. So yeah, it plays a factor.
For sure. Well, I know the Beast JMU hosts, they have a pretty good set of gyms where the walls are not that close. So I'm interested to see, assuming, Towson and Penn State show up to that one and some other schools, what the results look like there. Okay. Any lasting thoughts or comments from you guys about this tournament before we head over to the MDC?
I think just something looking at East Coast teams going forward, which you guys touched on in the beginning about how emotional they are. I think that's either going to be a huge carry for them through nationals in April or a huge downfall for them. I like to hear that that's Towson's mindset of like, hey, we know we aren't healthy. We know we lost, and didn't fuel it into any like negativity or like big frustration since they already know what they're dealing with. But we know from playing East Coast teams, and it's been a long time showing it, that as hot as they can be, they can either ride that and run a team into the ground, or they can self-implode. And I think that's going to be some of their biggest competitors traveling up to nationals, is their own emotions and how they play.
Absolutely.
Yeah, my only thoughts in regards to that, agree with you 100%, Rebecca. I can't, before this tournament, it was pretty easy to say Towson won. Penn State 2, JMU 3. After this tournament, I can't even tell you. Like now I got to travel to the War tournament and see both Towson and Penn State if they're coming, and then I can give you a clear answer.
Is Penn State going to the War, Colby?
Okay.
No, Towson's coming, and I will credit Towson this, despite the losses they had and the injuries to players. Colin Sporer, their coach, messaged me after, and I was like, "Hey, you still want the schedule that you requested?" And he's like, "Absolutely. We're coming there to play the best teams because we believe we're still the best team." And so credit to where credit's due. They're not tucking their tail between their legs and running. They're they're going head first into the quote unquote belly of the beast. And they want to play best teams in the league at Akron. So it's good for them that they want to do that still.
I'm really excited for them to play. I think one thing this league is missing is integration between the regions.
Yeah.
And them being willing to travel to Akron will enhance that. So it's exciting. Also, Grand Valley's coming down, right? Which other?
We'll get more into the
yeah.
war in a bit, but
I'm
I do
getting
with
eager.
the overarching point of integration. I'm hoping next year when things look a little more normal and we don't have like these, knock on wood, these COVID delays, like delaying the start of spring semester, delaying a lot of teams even traveling in the fall. So hopefully things look a lot more normal and we get a lot more travel and a lot more matches played throughout the year. All right.
Fingers crossed.
So let's jump over to the MDC. I know Becca's been sitting there antsy in her seat waiting to gab about it. So before we get to the big match, just shout out to Kevin Bailey. He wrote a really awesome recap article. And I won't bore you guys with the details, but he went over, each team's performance, and then toward the bottom, a lot of really good players that are, maybe lesser known to look out for and that could be household names going forward. So please check that article out. There's going to be a lot of names in there that you'll know soon enough, and you'll put a face to a name. So because there is, while Saginaw's rebuilding, Western is hopefully building, and obviously MSU and Grand Valley are still near the top. There's a lot of talent that's going to be very prominent in this region soon. So shout out to that. But yeah, the thing everyone wants to talk about, right? MSU's massive comeback victory against Grand Valley in overtime, right? Down 3-0 at halftime. Becca, what was that halftime talk like? What changed in the second half for you guys?
Honestly, it started before half, and it was all of the vets. And by vets, I mean our juniors. We have only one senior graduating this year, and it's his first year. But they instantly were on the sidelines with Kevin and I talking, even in the middle of the half, about what to change going into halftime and kind of riding it out and waiting for half to get there to reset everything. But Wes, I know you said in ODC, your heart was probably going over 100 that entire time. I'm right there with you. I did not check my Apple Watch for a reason because I knew my heart rate was going to be through the absolute roof. But it was more so just getting these guys to get their nerves out. As everybody sees, and as most of these teams are, we have a lot of rookies, and these rookies have never played with anything that big before or had the idea of, having a trophy or something like that other than high school sports. So the first half I really want to attribute to nerves and just letting ourselves get complacent and not play in our game. After that, it was literally some absolutely fire huddle talks from our head coach, Kevin Wynn. He was just telling them, you've got exactly 12 minutes and 49 seconds. I need you to give me every single ounce of everything you have for the next 12 minutes. If you can't do this for 12 minutes, we've got another guy sitting there on the side waiting to take your spot. But I don't know what it was. Those guys just dug deep. They gritted their teeth through everything because we have a lot of guys working through some small things too, and ended up pulling it out. I've nothing but high praise for them for just biting down and going through it and putting their heads down and going to work.
Yeah, no, with the celebration that you guys had after after closing it out in overtime was just so emotional, just so much joy and jubilation, like catching Coach Kevin by surprise, right, pulling him over for the interview. Sorry about that, Kevin. We had to do it. Just you could just see how much it meant to Kevin, to you, to the guys there. Just what does that mean for the club going forward, and how far can you ride that to nationals? What do you guys think?
Honestly, I think they're riding it the whole way. We literally had guys, half of our roster went home, showered, and texted us asking if they could come watch film. They are so focused and driven for this. I have never honestly seen a more focused group of rookies in my entire association with MSU, which goes the whole way back to 2013. Ever since the first week of recruitment and practices, all 12 of our rookies made a group chat together, and they have been texting each other every day, keeping on each other to stretch every day, like updating each other if they can't make it or anything like that, helping each other out with classes and things, watching film together. They'll get over and watch film together outside of practice. And now that they've gotten a little taste of what it feels like, especially in such a historic moment of breaking a 17-year curse, these guys are absolutely through the roof and just ready to keep working even harder to hopefully take home a ship in April.
Do you guys have any questions, comments? What did you guys think of MDC and the finish there?
What a great tournament. What a great tournament.
Awesome.
Mom, oh my God. Like, I was watching it the whole time from like start to finish. And like I said, smart. And I was telling Stumpo this, and I was like, it was smart that they made the tournament Grand Valley, Michigan State at the end, because it will force you to watch it. Like, you don't have a choice. Like, you have to be emotionally involved. And yeah, that first half, I was like, okay, let's see what's going to happen, because there was so many things going into that tournament. I was like, okay, GV, they're not at full strength, just like Towson. If I'm a Spartan player, I'm looking at GV. I'm like, okay, I'm licking my chops, but my coaches are telling me to calm down. So it's a mixture of, ooh, we can do this, but I got to stay in the moment. So I saw that on the stream, and I was like, holy smokes, like, this is really happening. So no, it was a fun tournament to watch. I was very pleased with everybody.
Colby?
Yeah, I'm gonna, basically echo what Shadid said. But I was watching. I was getting ready to go to a Valentine's dinner, and I was sitting on my bed. I just showered. I'm like sitting there. I couldn't stop watching it. I was telling Erin, my girlfriend, like I was like, oh, Michigan State's down 3-0 at half. I was like, I'm just gonna take a shower and whatever. So I started getting ready, and I kept getting notifications that like, oh, it's 3-1, oh, it's 3-2. So I started watching, and I was like, they took it into overtime. I was like, this overtime match is insane. Like, I've never seen, like, so we've been talking about like the best dodgeball matches in the most recent time, and like this is definitely like a top 10 of recent memory, because it's just two like high caliber teams just duking out, and it didn't come down to like, I mean, it came down to big plays, but it came down to who was playing more flawless dodgeball. And at the time, Michigan State just played flawless dodgeball in the second half. There were times I was like, oh, GV's going to hold on to this win. GV only has to do this to win. But then Michigan State, they kept coming back. They kept fighting. And, like, you could tell that they wanted it more in the second half than Grand Valley did. And usually you can't say that about Grand Valley, that a team wants it more. But the Spartans, of Michigan State, they just wanted it more in that day, and it just really showed. And it just, the growth of this team has that we've seen recently is just great, because of how young they are and how far they've come, and how they've reached that upper echelon already is just like incredible to see. So nationals, whatever the tournament we next see Michigan State at, is going to be very, very interesting to see where they're sitting at the time.
It was incredible to watch that match live. After halftime, I was pretty ready to give up on MSU. It was one of those games you watch and you're like, wow, MSU's completely out of it, but you just keep it on in the background, And then they scored a point. You're like, oh, they have a chance. I mean, there's 16 minutes left. Then they score another point.
12:49.
Yeah, and then, of course, the exact second. It's going to be engraved in your memory forever, probably.
Literally.
Yeah, but it's one of those, just a build-up all the way to the end, and it was just incredible to watch that team come back, just like flip of a script. Everything that Grand Valley was doing right in the first half, they did wrong in the second, and then same thing with MSU. MSU came out an entirely different team. Your guys' players that needed to step up, stepped up, and it was incredible to watch.
Yeah,
One thing.
definitely. Oh, go ahead, Becca.
Oh no, I was just going to say one thing I can attribute everything to, and it kind of starts on a similar pace to how UC and OSU started out in their second half. We took a 14, 15-minute point just to take that first point because we started with over 26 minutes in the second half. We didn't take that second point till like 12:50, 12:49 left. And that was when the guys started realizing like, oh, we've got to pick up the pace. So in terms of playing with speed and drive behind it, there was also some accuracy. I mean, Jack Gerling, our left corner for us, his lefty throws are just absolutely sick. There's so much. It's such a crazy throw to watch, and whenever you look at him, like when we had a balls over to have Nick Hale and I forget who was in the right corner left in, we looked at him and Jack just looks right in my eyes. He goes, "Oh, I've got the plant foot," and it was with the most confidence and calm that I've ever seen. I was like, "Yeah, okay, he does," and just went out and did it.
Yeah, it's truly insane to see how quickly your young kids have gelled together to, not only combine the raw talent, and obviously everybody knows by now you guys have a lot of big arms. Just to see how quickly you guys have gelled together. One big thing I noticed in the second half personally is, Barry plays that middle position for you guys. He draws a ton of attention, right, and draws a lot of throws and is super elusive with dodging those throws. He honestly didn't do a lot in that half, like from my perspective, like offensively. Like I kept sitting there watching and I'm like, what is Barry doing? Barry needs to like take this game over. He needs to like, I've seen him in other matches this year just boom, 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 mow people down, and he just wasn't. He was. So I think it's the point I'm trying to get to is even without, your guys' best player having this big monumental offensive impact, there's just so much depth across the board that I see from MSU to where you guys, there's other guys that can step up, like Alec Dean, like Crockett, right? Just the two names on top of my head. Jack Gerling, obviously, being another big name. There's just so much depth on your guys' roster. It's going to be really, frankly, scary to see what you guys are looking like in about 2 years from now, just when they have way more experience under their belt than they already do.
I think that's one thing, too, to speak to Barry and to give him more props that he really doesn't get. Besides, Barry has one of the hardest throws in the country. Barry knows that his role is so multi-leveled on a court that when you have depth, like you said, around him, he knows that he doesn't have to worry about being that big arm to rely on all the time, especially if everybody else is hitting. Like you said, if Alec or John or Jack are hitting on their spots, Barry doesn't need to be that arm. And that's another thing that is so great about his game is he can know that about him. Barry, we all know, can take over a point very easily on a court, and he can be a swing and a catalyst for everything. But his game is just slowly evolving, and it's crazy to think that he's just now getting his first year of collegiate dodgeball under his belt because of the pandemic. I did see Ethan posted on comments how much time was left for MSU's last point in regulation. MSU had 3:51 left on the clock when it was 3-2 to start the sixth point, and they took the sixth point with 12 seconds left. So 3.5 minute point.
All right, we've beat this to death, Becca. Any closing comments you want to say about MDC before we move on?
Just that I'm incredibly proud of those guys, and even though it did come down to MSU and GVSU at the end of there, I don't want to take any credit away from Saginaw. They're rebuilding, but they've got a great set of people to work around. And given another 2 years, Saginaw is going to be right back where they left off. They're going to be a powerhouse again, and they're incredibly talented.
My last comment definitely is about the rookies on the team. They stepped up and really made a difference in that game. I think Alec Dean and John Crockett are the two names of the guys who made the most impact there. And just kind of to expand that to the entire league, this year you really see teams with good rookies have good rosters because we had that off year from COVID and the half year before. So most of the teams in the entire league are just built around their rookies. So to see the success of these teams based off of their young players, it's really encouraging for the future of all these programs.
Absolutely. All right, we got to put a bow on MDC. So shout out to rookies, shout out to MSU obviously for winning, and hopefully what we can look forward to going forward from all of them. All right. Our last big topic that we wanted to get to is the War 5. We'll preview that a little bit. There are a number of teams slated to make their trip to Akron this year, February 26th and 27th. It is a 2-day tournament in Akron, Ohio. Colby, can you tell us a bit about the teams in attendance or that will be there?
Yeah. We have Kentucky, Grand Valley, Towson, Cincinnati, Ohio State, Ohio University, Cleveland State, Miami, UWP, Bowling Green, and Akron. Obviously their home tournament. So it's going to be a very, very interesting tournament to see some matches we wouldn't technically necessarily see unless it's on nationals time. So what I'm most excited for that is to get some parity in the league that we haven't seen yet, because it's mostly been inter-region play. And so having a couple of schools come out of outside regions come to Ohio is going to be really interesting for matchup purposes. One of the biggest things I'm looking forward to is seeing how Towson competes against the top schools in Ohio and then Grand Valley as well. It's going to be really interesting to see where everybody stacks up, because right now we really don't know. We know that there's kind of a tier 1 and then tier 2 of teams, but we don't really know where teams line up within those tiers. And so it's going to be really, really cool to see that integration at the War.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's that cross region play that we're really looking to get, and we'll get, like you said, a couple a Michigan team, an East Coast team, a ton of Ohio teams, UK, and UWP, basically, right? So it should be a good set of two matchups, and I know GV and Towson are planning to play both days. We did have a question earlier from Ryan Ginsberg. MSU is not going to the War. I believe Becca stated that they're just going to choose to rest up after MDC. They had a few guys that are not feeling great, Becca, or?
Yeah, we have a couple guys dealing with some things. One of them is kind of diagnosed with some minor tendonitis right now. We don't want to, and they're a key player. We don't want them to flare that up. So we made the decision, as hard as it was, because we want to play these guys again. But we'd rather have everybody healthy for nationals than push them too hard on a 2-week turnaround time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I can't blame you guys. It's the safe route, and that was a big emotional tournament last week. So better to rest, and maybe we'll see you guys at another tournament if there's one prior to nationals, but we'll see. Regardless, so what I do think this is a good opportunity to see. Speaking of nationals, a good preview of it, right? A lot of big name teams that a lot of people expect to be, certainly top 8, probably a lot of these teams, Final 4 teams, right? Going into day 2 at nationals, with UC, GV, Towson, OSU in particular. And I honestly, I would throw BG in there just because they were so dang competitive at ODC. What matchups are you guys looking forward to most? I know GV and Towson plan to play like all the biggest teams attending, right? So what are you guys looking most forward to?
I'm excited to see MSU, honestly. Last time they came to the Ohio region, they went 1-2.
What, Dylan?
They're not coming.
MSU's not.
Where were you just at, Dylan?
You said nationals preview, so I just went all the way to the end.
Oh, all right. So we're talking about the War still. What matchups at the War are you guys looking forward to seeing the most?
Yeah, it's
more integration. I was going to say MSU because I want to see the regions integrate. So same thing with GV. GV just lost to MSU, and they're coming to the War, and they went 3-0 last time in Ohio. But I don't know if GV is going to be as contending as they once were. They played an awful half in the second half versus MSU. So coming and seeing them integrate with this region again, and how much more teams have improved. OSU, UC, BG are all really high contenders right now. So seeing that match up with them, and then hopefully we see a Towson GV match. Really, just all the regions integrating is what I'm looking forward to the most.
Honestly, to piggyback off what Dylan said too with GV, I'm excited to see how they look in playing 2 days. I mean, we know GV is always a high contender at nationals, but like Dylan just said, they had they kind of imploded in the second half versus us. And when they started out playing Saginaw, it was a very slow first half for GV. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how this team comes back, especially with, no Ben Smart. And then I know they have a couple of injuries they're trying to work through as well, other than Ben. Tom Williamson went down for them with us and left in the middle of the game with us. So I'm not sure what's going on with him. I hope he's okay, but that's another notable player for them that went down with injury.
Yeah, Josh Hill he didn't go down. He played it through to the end. So shout out to him for being a bit of a warrior there. But it looked like he maybe was cramping, or was it like a hamstring strain? Maybe it looked like.
Yeah,
So,
he told us he was just cramping up by the end of it because it had been a long day. So hopefully he's good. But
yeah, no, I agree with that. I think it'll be interesting to see because I know OSU and I think OSU and UC are only going Sunday, right, Dylan?
Yeah, OSU was going
Yeah.
to go both days, but we switched it up again, kind of just for health reasons.
Right. Yeah, we were thinking about it the same thing, but we couldn't get our full roster unless it was Sunday, just because we had a couple guys had plans on Saturday, so we committed it Sunday. So I'm really interested to see what GV and Towson look like on Sunday after playing, 2 or 3 matches on Saturday. That has got to be a gauntlet, especially coming out of COVID. Not a ton of matches under all of our belts. Like not, you don't have those like calluses, or what, whatever built up, right? Of having played for 2-3 years your roster, right? So it's I don't know what kind of teams we're gonna get. Maybe they'll come out Sunday and they'll both teams will look great still, but
Yeah.
I do worry about the fatigue level for teams playing 2 days of matches this
Seeing
next
their
week.
performance on Sunday will give us kind of a flash forward of what to expect on National Sunday as well, because most teams don't play a two-day tournament on a weekend throughout the entire year. So when they go on the Nationals, we kind of see teams fall off on that Sunday morning, which you would never expect to. I know Grand Valley is one of the teams that really they're built around that success. They're built around preparing for Sunday. They always get a good spot in the bracket because they're typically number one going into it. So they kind of tell themselves, hey, let's take it easy on Saturday because it doesn't matter. And then let's just save ourselves for the rest of the tournament on Sunday. But I know these teams like UC really wants this win bad to kind of put a staple into their program, into the league, and become one of those power schools. So you guys might go really hard on Saturday, and then come Sunday you realize this is your first 2-day tournament, so you might get worn out and you're not expecting it. So my advice to you guys would be prepare for Sunday and don't go too hard with two emotions on the first day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think there's actually 2 things for this tournament. I'll be very quick and whatnot. I'm really looking forward to first 2-day tournament in a long time. This is also the last tournament that I went to before the pandemic happened. So there's a little bit of personal redemption on my end that I really wanted to capture as much footage as possible. So I'm excited, to see these teams play. And like the second thing with that is I'm really curious to see how these Ohio teams are going to play. Obviously, you can talk about, GV and Towson, rightfully so, because they're still in the top 3. Actually, my apologies, top 4 last time, but the standing just got updated. But I really want to see like how some of these other Ohio teams, how they're going to play against one another, because this is probably going to be one of the last bigger tournaments for a lot of these teams before April, which they should be playing at Miami, University of Miami, Ohio. So it's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it for commentating streaming, of course.
You mentioned Miami hosting. I think they're going to host that. Their plan was to host the weekend before Nationals. So we'll see if that tournament happens, because I really don't know how much interest they're going to draw a week before a 2-day tournament, like Nationals.
Move it up a week, please.
I'll be curious.
Yeah, if they can move back to 326, UC will be there. So we're thinking about hosting again on that date. Speaking of, just shout out for teams who might want to travel down to Cincinnati on March 26th. So if we get interest, I'll probably post something just to see what interest we get. But
disclaimer, you have to pay for the courts.
That is true. It is really expensive to do anything at UC. The university does not love us. So shout out UC Club Sports in the Rec Center. Any other lasting thoughts on the war? I know there's going to be a lot of teams that we haven't seen a whole lot of come, right? Like UWP is a big one. We've only really seen them play Lincoln, Nebraska, right? So I'm curious to see, and I don't know what matches they have, obviously, because the schedule won't be out until this weekend. I'm curious to see how they do and some of those other, mid-tier teams and how they shape up when they play against bigger opponents.
How do you feel about the UWP and UK matchup? Those are two teams that haven't played each other in a very long time, I don't think. It's going to be interesting to see.
Is that a match that's going to happen?
Hopefully. How do you feel, Colby?
Maybe. They're two teams of the same caliber as from what I've seen of both of them this season. They're kind of the same, tier teams. I'd like to see them, duke it out. But one of the things that I'm excited for is to see how we'll obviously know how close the Ohio region is when it comes to competition. But to see like BG, Ohio, and Akron, like the three kind of not, middle tier teams in Ohio, see where they stack up against, the other teams in the regions, either Grand Valley or UWP or Towson, depending on how the schedule works out, to see where they stack up, because we know Ohio State and Cincinnati are the two top in Ohio. So to kind of like see like where the other teams lie is going to be very interesting. I think next coming weekend. But
all right, so shout out to anyone who wants to travel down to Akron to watch the matches, even if you're not playing. Shadid, as mentioned, will be in attendance. We will have live streams going, hopefully of, I'm assuming both courts. Colby, 2 courts running at once.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, 2 courts.
Yeah, so we'll have one main court. Yeah, we'll have one main court. Shadid's going to stay, and then going to try to set up a stream on the other court. Have a steady stream going all day. Whether or not teams have their individual team streams up or not, I'd like to have something at least there all day, just sitting to record the matches.
Sure. Yeah, we'll figure out how to make that happen. It shouldn't be too hard. I know UC will definitely have stuff to record. I know GV always does. OSU does. So, we'll make that happen. A lot of options for everyone to watch all the matches that weekend. All right, let's wrap this up with some quick fun nationals related stuff. What other than like the big names like UC, MSU, GV, Towson, JMU, and OSU is the last one I think I didn't mention. Other than I think those top 6, who would be your guys' dark horse team to make a run on Sunday?
For me, it would be Penn State. Penn State would be my dark horse.
Why?
Because this is actually, in my humble opinion, like one of the more talented, but also one of the more cohesive Penn State teams. I had a private conversation with them like early on, like in the season. I was like, hey, like, you guys can win, but you guys got to clean up some things defensively. They didn't take offense to that. They kind of took it to heart, and they're kind of working on some things. And I do believe, like, as they get in more games this season, they would kind of understand why I say that statement, because they're so offensively minded. But there's going to be times where you're going to have to make some timely catches. And I've seen it happen in person. They just got to be more consistent. So Penn State would be my dark horse.
I would vote for BG. I think that they've shown a lot of improvement throughout the year, and they're one of those teams that is 75% rookies. So if they continue to improve and they all just kind of step up their game and prove that they can be the player they're going to be in 3-4 years, then that team is going to make the Final Four. They came out and really surprised us, and I think they're going to do it to somebody else that day.
Yeah, I think those are the two, or the probably the 2 big dark horse teams that stand out to everybody after the last couple weekends of matches. Beyond that, I think Akron will make a lot of noise. They've been pretty consistent all year long. Ohio's made a lot of noise in both tournaments they've played in. Hope they get more matches under their belt next year. But other than that, I think it's a crapshoot. I think SVSU has the opportunity to make some noise. They could definitely crack top 8 on Sunday, in my opinion, though. Any other teams you guys are fans of?
I was going to echo Saginaw. I was going to say BG or Saginaw. I feel like it's going to come down to their key offensive pieces. Couple people in mind. I'm sorry if I butcher your name. He's the rookie, Machiella Cole. He's phenomenal on the court so far, especially as a rookie in the league. And then number 11 for them, Adrian Sanchez. He was a catching monster at MDC. I just remember his first point against GB. He was on the right corner. He had like 3 catches back to back to back, 2 of which I think were on team throws. And if they can play the way they did against us in the second half of our match and against GB in the first half, they're going to make some deep runs.
I'm going to throw Nebraska out there if they attend nationals. It's kind of like, I don't really know where they stack up, but their performances against UWP were all pretty dominant. And so you have to think there's a pretty big skill gap between, those two teams. And so based on what I've seen, I think Nebraska could shock a couple teams on day 1 of nationals and crack the top 10 on day 2.
I really like that team, even though I haven't seen much of them. One thing that's really kind of surprising, unfortunately, but awesome to me is that they have a woman leading their team. I forget her name. Does anybody know it?
It's Robin Mcdonald.
Yep.
Yeah, she seems to be doing really well for them, and I love it. It's a statement that more women need to join the league and prove that this is a co-ed sport, because I think that we're lacking a little bit there. So it's really awesome to see her take that team and kind of be dominant in that matchup. So I'm excited to see how they perform when they integrate to other regions at nationals.
Honestly,
go
ahead, Wes.
I was just going to talk about JT Warren just chimed in and said that she graduated apparently in December, so RIP.
All right, can we edit a live stream? Can I take all that back?
Rip. And I was going to throw on there, though, I pulled up the standings, though, just to defend UWP, because I know they're going to say something. 2 of the matches were blowouts, 4-1 and 4-1. They did 2 double headers, and oddly enough, those are both the first matches of those days. The second matches of each day was 3-2 UNL in regulation, and then 4-3 in overtime, the 4th time they played. So
awesome.
UWP apparently a slow starting team, but I would obviously still give the edge to Nebraska over them for sure. So
yeah, I wish I knew more about
nationals.
I wish I knew more about that region. It seems like UWP probably has a lot of rookies, so they're learning a lot from their first matchup of the day. Then once they go into the second one, they kind of develop some new strategies. So hopefully they will gain a lot of experience before nationals, so they can really step up too, because I'm excited to see that region play more teams. Unfortunately, they're so far.
All right, let's wrap this up. I've got a fun exercise that you guys are gonna hate me for making you pick. Bullet to your head or gun to your head. Cannot pick your own team who wins nationals.
Luckily, VCU is not going to make the top 16, so I don't even have to worry about that.
I'm sorry about that.
Nah, it's fine. I'm transparent. We're in a building year, so it doesn't bother me one bit. Lord Jesus. Obviously the safe answer is GV, but I'm going to be a little bit unconventional. MSU, don't let me down.
Ooh.
Don't let me down.
All right, who wants to go next?
I vote for UC. Too late.
Yeah, I'm going to say UC as well. I just think that your tempo and the depth of your roster is going to carry you until day 2. Michigan State was going to be my other pick, but I just think that how fast UC gets rolling and how well you guys manage a game is going to be tough for any team to overcome, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I think that your team just has so much depth. You're, I'm pretty sure, the most experienced team in the league now, even though you've only been around 4 years. So you have a lot of graduating seniors who are going to want this win. So I think you guys are going to come out with a lot of momentum and really just try to make a statement about your team and just kind of the Ohio region this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we lose a few big players this year, but next year is the big, it's a cliff as far as our graduating class goes. So that's another big reason why I'm pushing my team to recruit more this year. So next year is going to be massive for recruiting for us. We need that. But anyway, my picks also, obviously this isn't a GV friendly stream. If I can't pick my own team, I'm picking my alma mater. Is that against the rules? I'm making the
It's
rules,
not.
right? So I can
Definitely
do that.
not.
I'm making the rules, so I can do that. I'm picking MSU just for all the reasons listed. They're when we talked about them at MDC, their rookie class is so big and so cohesive already at such a young age and so few matches under their belt that it's tough to bet against them at this point. I will say they cannot start slow again against another team like that. They will not that's just playing with too much fire. I would not recommend going down 3-0 at the half if you want to win a dodgeball match.
0 out of 10 recommend that. That was so stressful on me. No, I'd probably say UC. I know, we played you guys West back in December, and we kept saying to each other, if there would have been another 2 minutes in that point, it might have gone to OT or gone differently. And I think now that we have a little bit more experience under our belt in training, I would love to see another UC MSU matchup before nationals or even at nationals. But UC does have a lot of depth, and your tempo is you have a great coach that's taught them great tempo and great skill throughout the game. That I'd love to see a UC MSU matchup. But
Hey, let's make it happen in the final. Sorry, Dylan.
That's the dream. No,
We'll see what
seriously,
happens.
that's the dream right there.
Well,
that's the dream matchup I want to see.
That's my dream because if I lose, I still win.
That was, I'm going to say
On
a
my
verbal
card.
eye roll to Wes. Verbal eye roll.
No. All right, guys. I think that's it for us for now. Do you guys want to get back together and do this again after the war?
Yeah, I'm cool for that.
Let's keep pushing content. We got to get some stuff out for spring break coming up for some of these kids. So,
Yeah.
Mark it down.
Yeah. All right, we'll plan on it. So next pod will be after. And we'll have the Beast to talk about as well. So after the war and the Beast, we'll reconvene, talk about how those tournaments went, and really look forward to nationals. So signing off. Wes Peters, Dylan Greer, Shadi Drakeford, Becca Chappell, and Colby Bryceland. Thanks, guys.